This podcast is brought to you by Bernie's Tap and Grill. It's family owned and operated since 1954. Located across from Wrigley Field on Clark and Waveland. My dad hit a few home runs on the Waveland Avenue, and Bernie's was my dad's favorite place to go. It's got delicious food, 4 full-service bars, an awesome beer garden, a sidewalk patio cafe, and a cool upstairs area. It's the place I've always met my friends at before and after games. Go on by and tell Linda Dillman Jeff Santos sent you. Bernie's Tap and Grill, where you go when you go to Wrigley.
Sit back and relax. It's time for peanuts, popcorn, and crackerjacks.
Hey, how's it going? I'm your host, Jeff Santo. I'm here with my wife, Christy.
Hello, hello.
We have part 2 of Bonnie Hunt. It's fantastic.
Oh, really emotional episode. It's so wonderful.
And you'll get a lot of laughs out of it, too. That's for sure. You know, Bonnie was talking in part 1 about the analytics of the game, how the pitchers are being pulled so early that you almost get so frustrated because they could be pitching a great game and all of a sudden, boom, there's a reliever coming in the 6th inning or the 7th. These guys don't get a chance to even pitch the 7th inning.
Why is that? Is that because they're so fragile that they can only have a certain pitch count? Is there agents vying for that? I don't...
It's getting to a point where, yeah, I mean, they're structured in a box, it seems like. And we'll never see really perfect game or no hitters because they're not getting a chance at it anymore, you know? And so...
Right, it almost takes like a risky manager who's like, yeah, I'm going to leave him in. I mean, because that's a rarity, is that...
It is now. I mean, you're never going to see a guy pitch, get 300 wins anymore. I mean, this is why I think that you're losing the consistency of ball players. I mean, so many pitchers are coming in that you don't go back to the 60s, 70s, 80s. These guys that are Hall of Famers consistently pumped out numbers. I mean, they had high on base percentages. You know, they would walk as much as they struck out. Now you're seeing so many strikeouts every year. Few ball players, year in and year out, really bring the same thing to the plate. And it's difficult to watch. And these pitchers being pulled early can really change the tone of the game, because if a guy's giving up only 4 hits and he's going into the 6th inning and he's nearing 80-some pitches and you take him out, you know, and he doesn't pitch the 7th, and all of a sudden these guys on the bench are going, hey, man, we got new blood. Hell, it's almost pumps them up. So now you got 3 innings to go with your relievers that these hitters can get you in the 7th, pick away in the 8th, and by the 9th, here you are, the closer's up against it. So it's really changing the dynamics of the game, and it's been going on for many years now, but you're starting to really see it this year, and I don't know why.
And these new rules haven't changed or affected it in any way, right? Or
no, the new rules make the game go faster, but you're starting to see it maybe because the game is going faster that you're like, wait a second, don't pull this guy now. He gave up 4 hits. Get him into the 7th. So now, usually it was you get through the 7th, you got your setup guy in the 8th, and you got your closer in the 9th. Now you got to kind of figure like, okay, I'm taking this guy out in the 5th, 6th. Now I got whoever I bring in that next is almost like it should be your closer, because you got to keep that tone going. You know, keep the guys down.
Interesting. Good stuff.
And I feel like, you know, obviously it has to do with money. These guys got such big contracts, but you got to still play the game, man. And you can't, in the beginning of the season, everyone's like, oh, we can't throw a guy too much but you got to win these games, man. You got to win these games, especially if you got a 3 or 4 game losing streak. You got to win that next game, and you got to give it a shot. You got to take some risk, and we're seeing the risk level go down, which also affects the consistency of play, which for the hitters too. You don't see too many hitters now year in and year out putting up numbers like they did back in the 60s, 70s, and 80s.
And without that risk level, it kind of, for the fan, it makes it a little bit less exciting. Less
dramatic. Mm-hmm. Yeah, because it's like, hey, man, let the guy go 7. Let's get this win. And thinking about the next day, or maybe his arm might get tired. It's like, well, then what are we watching, man?
Yeah.
But we love baseball. Like I said, the game's the game. You just hope that, man, these analytics just don't squeeze it so tight that you're watching a 2-hour game go by so fast, and then you're like,
nothing happened.
It's like,
and we lost.
Get us to the next day. Yeah. Well, part 2's coming up with Bonnie.
Oh, here we go.
Stay
It's gonna
tuned.
be great.
Gino's East of Chicago, doing deep dish in Chicago since 1966. Now has an LA location. Same great recipes, same great ingredients. That's no joke. Their deep dish tastes exactly the same as it does in Chicago. It's my favorite. I love the deep dish. And Gino's East is where I go when I want a taste from home. Named Best Pizza in LA by LA Times readers, and I certainly agree. Plus, there's a full menu of Italian favorites, Chicago Tavern-style pizza, and the Italian beef sandwich. Dine in for great food straight from the oven, or do carryout or delivery. For great pizza and great atmosphere, go to 12924 Riverside Drive in Sherman Oaks, near the corner of Riverside and Coldwater Canyon, just off the 101 and Coldwater Canyon exit. Or order online. Go to genoseast.com. When did you know that you were taking the Joseph Campbell call to the journey? You know, when did that happen, and how did it happen? You're nursing, and then boom, you shift.
Well, there's a couple stories there. My dad, I always worked in the nursing home. I was a candy striper as a teenager. Then I volunteered at the nursing home. Then I eventually got a job at the nursing home as a nurse's aide. And that was through high school. And then, my dad's like, what are you going to do with your life? And it wasn't like my dad could send us to college. That wasn't, if you wanted to go to college, you had to work or go to a community college for a couple of years and, pay your way. And my older siblings were much, much smarter than me. In fact, Sister Christina, the nun that I had in 6th grade, made me stand up in class once because I had handed in a math assignment and it was so horribly failed. She said, "Hon, stand up." I said, "I've taught all the kids in your family and you're the dumbest one." He announced it. Jeff announced it in front of the class.
Oh my God.
I felt like my spine left my body. I thought,
Oh my God. They're mean. That's
terrible. But then I remember walking home that day from school and I was like, I don't know, I felt like this kind of relief. I'm like, oh, I'm the dumb one. Like I finally had a identity in the family. So I was relieved. I didn't really put much pressure on myself. After that, he sounds like, "You're stupid, kid. Deal with it."
It's math. It's math. Come on.
Oh,
Everyone
please.
hates math.
Oh, I hated it. And he had dyslexia then, but I knew the words were jumping around the page. Kind of flash photograph pages before they'd call me to read because I was like, if I looked at the words while I was reading, I couldn't get it straight. I mean, I didn't know what I was dealing with, but I figured it out. But I was relieved when Sister Christina told me I was plain dumb. So then I get in high school and I'm thinking, oh, maybe I'll go to beauty school. I had all these different ideas. But I wanted to be a storyteller because like your dad telling about movies, that my mother would circle movies in the TV guide and say, tonight we're going to watch this Alfred Hitchcock movie. And she would almost give us information before we'd watch the movie so that we'd have an interest in it.
Wow. That's awesome.
Yeah. And you're not going to believe what happens to the woman after that, and so we'd watch these movies together and the Marx Brothers and just all the brilliance of Preston Sturges films and Billy Wilder. And my mom had great taste and she was an entertainer, singer herself before she had, as she says, gave birth to her audience. So I wanted to be a writer, and my dad said, "Well, what are you going to write about if you haven't lived? You gotta live life, And I said, "Well, no." And he goes, "You can't. Hollywood. I mean, how are you going to go to Hollywood?" But I had all these hopes and dreams, and he wanted me to go to nursing school. So I did because he said that I'll have something to fall back on, and that I was a natural caregiver. He would say to me. So I went to nursing school, and about 3 months into nursing school, my dad died of a heart attack at 52. And I was so angry, Jeff. I didn't want to see people laugh. I felt I didn't get to save my dad. How can I save somebody else? It was so, our house was so sad because like your dad, my dad was bigger than life. He was the guy in the neighborhood telling the story. And he was our famous baseball player to us, and just like your dad was a famous baseball player, but to you, he was your dad. I mean, it's just that same. And I said, I've gotten this patient, Mr. O'Brien, my mom, I said, I'm not going back to nursing school because dad's not going to see me graduate. There's no reason for me to go back. I can't. I'm angry. I was mad at the world. And here I am not even considering the heartache that my mom, who's so young and beautiful and has 7 children, that she's lost her husband, at this young age. But my dad, like your dad, had a lot of loss early in his life. And so she's like, well, go back to school 1 more week. You only have to go 1 more week in honor of dad, and then you can quit. But I want you to give it 1 week. And I was like, fine, I'll go 5 more days, Monday to Friday, and I'm done. Anyway, I went back to school, and I got one patient assigned to me. We used to do practical application in the morning. You take care of patient. In the afternoon, you would do theory. And I get, out of 500 patients, I get Mr. O'Brien. Mr. O'Brien has cancer. And, the first day I'm in the room, and he's like, well, I guess you read my chart. I'm doomed. And I said, oh, I don't know, Mr. O'Brien. I believe in miracles. And the nursing instructor had warned me, do not bring your problem. She said, Hunt, you're not the only person whose father ever died. So you're here to take care of other people, and you can't bring the burden to the patients. And I thought, oh my God, I can't believe how mean she is. Sister Christina all over again, that nun. But that's what she reminded me of. And I just thought, I can't wait till Friday when I say to her, goodbye, I'm leaving, So, and when I'm taking care of Mr. O'Brien, he's telling me he's got cancer. And he said, well, I feel lucky I have cancer. I said, well, why would you say that, Mr. O'Brien? And all I'm thinking about is my dad. Like, I just miss my dad so much. And he said, well, I'm Irish, and there's a lot we don't say to our families. And I've been able to tell my bride how much I love her. And he's married like 40 something years, much longer than my parents. I would tell my boys that I love them. And I'm thinking, oh my God, did we tell my dad we loved him enough? I mean, I couldn't even breathe in the room while he's talking to me. And I wanted to tell him so badly. I wanted to cry to him. I wanted him to comfort me, but that wasn't. And then he said, I knew a guy who died really suddenly, and he'd always say his greatest accomplishment were his children. And I'm so lucky that, I get to say all these things to my family. And he said, my friend, he was a family man, and blah, blah, blah. And he just talking. And by the 3rd day, I'm taking care of him, and his eyes were hurting him. And I'm really starting to fall for Mr. O'Brien, because of the way his family would come, and his wife would walk in, and he'd say, oh, my bride is here, and she was this older lady. And I remember putting a washcloth on his eyes, and I was reading his chart, and I saw that he worked at the Board of Education, which is where my dad worked as an electrician. And I closed the door, and he had the towel over his eyes. And I said, Mr. O'Brien, I'm not supposed to do this, but I'm wondering if you know my dad. And I'm not even talking about my dad in the past tense yet, because he's only been gone, And I said he worked at the Board of Education. And he said, what's his name? And I said, Bob Hunt. And he reached his arm out and grabbed my wrists, and he said, that's the man I was talking about.
Oh my God. Oh my God. Wow.
So I couldn't leave Mr. O'Brien.
Wow.
My theory is my dad got to heaven and said, who could stop her? She can't leave school. I think if I would have went to Hollywood before being a nurse, that my life would have been very different. But it definitely gave me a resource of inspiration, depth, perspective, and kindness that I learned from my patients and their families, and the love of family, and how suddenly life can change. But I stood and take care of Mr. O'Brien. And then later on, when I was working at Northwestern in the oncology department, they were making a movie. Tom Hanks and Jackie Gleason were making a movie, Nothing in Common. My dad loved Jackie Gleason. I loved Tom Hanks and Jackie Gleason. It was a big deal. And I told my patients, I'll go down and see how the movies are made, and come back and tell you everything. And I would come back and tell them stuff. And one of my patients said to me, did you meet Tom Hanks? I said, no, but I talked to Jackie Gleason. And I said, I didn't meet Tom Hanks. I wish I would have said hello. And he said, oh, when I get to heaven, I'll tell God to put you in a movie with Tom Hanks. And I said, oh, well, I think God has bigger things to worry about. And we all, got a kick out of it. And then I'd bring everybody from the theater. I was working at Second City at night. They would come and we'd do the show for the patients at the hospital. Both lives were so important. And then later on, do the Green Mile with Tom Hanks, right?
Yeah, right.
I remember being on the set, looking at him for a moment, thinking, "Oh my God," like doing a movie.
Right.
And I remember going down to see him that day at the hospital, and then I had a patient, Rudy Dubrievich, that asked me when I was going to go to Hollywood, follow my dreams, because I had been working at Second City at night. And I said, oh, Rudy, I would never do that. I said, I'm too old, and I'd be a failure. And then I got to come back and explain to everybody that I made a fool out of myself. And he said, come over here. And I stood next to him. He goes, take my hand. I took his hand. He said, look me in the eyes. I looked him in the eyes. He goes, I don't have a lot of time left. And I can tell you the biggest regret of my life is that I feared failure. So I want you to make a deal with me. When I'm gone, you'll go to California and you'll fail many times. Do we have a deal? And I said, we have a deal. Then we shook hands.
That's an amazing story. That's unbelievable, Bonnie. Oh my God. Wow. Very
blessed with people, with the strength of the human spirit.
Yeah. And really, but you're in the room with them though, because you want to be in the room, with the patient, and you're having dialogue and you're searching too, I mean, it's just like it's unbelievable.
Yes, we would share movies together. I would bring in the VCR player in movies. And,
wow.
I wasn't dating. I had hardly any social life at all because I hated leaving my patients. I would stay at the hospital. After I did medicine, to go into oncology was a blessing.
That's why I'm doing this podcast, is to hear stories like that. I that just connect, because you've had such an amazing journey, and not everyone can understand it, or can hear exactly where you came from. I mean, I'm sure a lot of people know that because you've been doing it for a long time, but it's just to hear that. I mean, it's unbelievable. Where did you, when you did make the transition, you didn't just jump to Second City? Didn't you do some improv before? How did that happen?
Yes. I was engaged to a doctor that I met while I was in nursing school. And I just thought, that he gave me an identity. I didn't know. I mean, I had a strong sense of self as far as, being a nurse and the patients. And I loved being at the hospital because people needed you. And I thought about how much my dad loved, and my mom and dad loved each other, and that he was gone. So I just always had this need to not want anybody to feel that pain of loss. And I think the doctor broke up with me, and I was so sad. And I was like, oh my God, I can't believe it. I thought, I was going to have this life with this doctor. Like it was some kind of, like he was Elvis or something. And it wasn't even that great of a, I mean, he was a nice and everything, but he wasn't like, he would say to me, like, we'd go to parties. He goes, oh, I don't know. I was a singer. I sang at this club called the Tambourine Lounge in Chicago. And he'd say, oh, I don't know, you should sing when they ask you to sing. And I said, oh, why? He goes, well, if you're going to be a doctor's wife, you really shouldn't call attention to yourself. I'm like, oh. Yeah. But I look back now and I'm thinking, oh my God, how I would go, oh, I'm so sorry. I'll never do that again. So crazy. But rejection, is God's protection, like they tell you.
Yeah.
So he dumps me and I'm devastated. And then I see, well, I go to comedy, go see Second City, because it was always put us in a good mood. We grew up going there. And I see this thing on the wall for Viola Spolin had this players workshop, an improv class. And I decided to take the class because I had nothing to do at night. And I was, sad and lonely because of the breakup and devastated. And I took that class and met, Joan Cusack. We started this little group called An Impulsive Thing that was in Bob's Bar across the street from Wrigley Field. It was so
great. That's great.
But it was, it was the 80s and comedy was everything, and everybody was in these improv groups. And then Joan was seen by Saturday Night Live, Joan Cusack, and they took Joan. And then Second City noticed me, and there was an audition. 200 girls showed up for one spot that was open. And the auditions went on for weeks. And you'd go back every week. And I had no experience except Players Workshop, which was this little improv school. But I'd only been in there for not that long. But I just kept going back to those auditions. And I don't know how it happened, but I was hired as the understudy. Another girl got the main, the part, this slot that was open, the part in the cast. And then she just didn't get the material fast enough. And then they called me the same day of a show and they said, do you know the show enough to go into it tonight? I go, yes. And they're like, okay, well, you have to be here like in an hour. Bernie Solins, he goes, I'll be here in an hour. And I was like, gosh, and I went in and did the show that night. And Yeah, I was in the main stage company. I did the touring company for a short time with our buddy Joe Murray.
Right.
It was a lot of fun, but
God,
yeah, but I never gave up my nursing job because I was like, I can't. Is this a real job to be
right.
on stage every night? Like I'm sure your dad felt like baseball. Is this a real job?
Right. Yeah, no doubt. No doubt.
You're putting on a show.
I'm getting paid. I love to play this.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, the Cusacks, it's funny you say that because I met John Cusack. I helped him prepare for 8 Men Out.
Oh, wow.
He never really played baseball. And at that time, I was just kind of wandering. I was working at Randy Hundley's fantasy camp. He was doing a camp down at Wrigley Field, and John came down with someone and said he's looking to get some. I'm like, I'll help you. I played ball. And so, we would go out to a park and just throw. And then my dad came out and started taking ground balls with him. And
oh, jeez.
so, yeah. So next thing you know, he really improved. He's playing Buck Weaver, but that's how, and I got to meet the Cusacks and, and his dad was in your movie.
Yes.
Which is great. I met him and it's just a wonderful family. And,
oh my God, Dick Cusack. Yeah, I love the Cusacks.
Wow, I could just see that. And then, so now when you were like in high school with all the nuns and everything, did your banter, did you get that quick wit going with them, or is it the family basically? It's
definitely
both.
the family.
Yeah.
And then the stuff I got in trouble for, I remember my dad laughing about it. And he didn't know I was listening, but I had one time cut Frank Sinatra's face off of an album with scissors. And I put a rubber band, I made a mask and I cut the mouth out like a Clutch Cargo, which was a cartoon. If you grew up in Chicago, there's this.
Yeah, of course.
Just the mouths moved on the end.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, I would go up. The classrooms in high school had these windows on the classroom doors that were like about this height. And I would come in and the Frank Sinatra face would be there and just my mouth would move and I'd be strangers in the night. And it was hilarious to the other kids. I had a captive.
Of course.
School was for me. And then I remember they called my parents in and I remember the night my mother saying, Bob, the nun pulled open a drawer and she pulls this out and says, your daughter had this. And she shows my dad the Frank Sinatra face that I had cut off the album. My dad was laughing.
Oh,
and I remember hearing him laugh going, oh my God, I'm funny. Am I funny? Because everybody else was funny. My older sisters, Kathy and Carol, my Tommy, Pat, and Kevin, they're all married. They're just so fast on their feet. Mary Alice, they're just like, that I grew up as an audience watching them and admiring them. And
you had to be fast, right?
You had to be fast in order to eat. I mean, the food would be gone. So crazy.
But the conversation had to be just going firing back and forth. I mean, that.
And Jeff, think about how we grew up. We're in a station wagon, no seatbelts.
Right.
Maybe dad's had a drink or two and everybody's smoking cigarettes and the windows are up and the air conditioning's on. We're basically in a disease. How did we? We're all flying around on the seats. Yeah. There's no restraints. It's so easy.
How did we survive? Right. We had that station wagon too, where the back seat was facing the back window, right?
Yes, we faced the back window.
Yeah, you're just like no seat belts. You're just cruising down.
I know.
Oh, God. It was right. We had when my dad there was a Ron Santo day in 1972. He got like a boat and a doom buggy and mini bikes. And we're like, so of course the doom buggy, I run it into the neighbor's garage the second day we get it, right? I don't know how many times we got chased by cops and then we're on mini bikes. What did you let us ride mini bikes for? You kidding me?
No helmet.
No helmet, nothing.
Crazy.
It was crazy.
We used to hang on to the bumper when it was icy out in Chicago. We would get on the back of the bumper. We would hang on to somebody's bumper and crouch down on our feet, and we would go with the car on the ice. We would line up. It's so crazy.
And it's so fun and crazy. And you had a lot of peccadillos, and I know in Catholic schools, right? We had, and public school wasn't much better. I couldn't. When I was a freshman, you remember Glenbrook South. There was a big dome on Lake Avenue, and that pool was like an Olympic. Everyone had, I guess schools had Olympic pools, but we had one that you actually felt like you were in the Olympics when you went into the pool area.
Yeah.
And freshman year, they made us all swim naked.
I know. It's St. Pat's High
You had
School.
to do it. Oh my God.
No, the women didn't swim naked.
Oh, I was going to say, but who came up
That's
with
how I
that?
ended up in comedy. Everybody was pointing and laughing. No, but
So,
St. Pat's High School, St. Patrick's High School for boys had a separate swim where the guys
it was freshman year only, like freshmen, and some are boys still, and some are men. It was so uncomfortable, right? But our school had below it, we had like, that you would go to the Shed Aquarium. We had these whale watching windows underneath.
No, that's not right.
I swear to God, no. You would go down in the locker room and you could watch the kids flailing in the pool. And I'm just like, what? And they eventually stopped it a couple years after my class, but it was like for a window of a decade. They did. I'm like, who came up with that idea?
That is.
It was so bad. It was the worst.
You think they'd have a sport of ring toss? I mean, it's ridiculous. I think back at that time, and I'm like, is that a false memory that St. Pat's had nude, then boys swam nude? But no. I remember when we were at the time, I asked one of the guys, I'm like, guys, didn't you guys swim nude? They're like, yeah, we did. So
yeah, we did. We just had to do it. But no one said anything. No fathers came along and said, I don't want my kids swimming naked. But it's different times. And it's just, hey, we got through it, right? So,
please. I mean, it's a miracle any of us survived.
Hey,
so crazy. When you leave the house, you're gone forever all day,
Oh God, right. And how could you walk to Wrigley? If you had to walk to Wrigley, could you walk to Wrigley from your house?
Oh, you could, but no, we took the bus. We took the bus down. Yeah, we take the bus down.
Yeah, because you're going down Irving Park, right? On Addison. You're going down Addison. Yeah. Because my dad would always take Irving Park. We'd come from the Edens.
Yeah.
Glenview, and then go on Irving Park. And then he had all these shortcuts, throughout those neighborhoods. Oh, yeah. Right. And I remember when I was driving him for when this old cub, his legs. So it was just me and him at his house the first month. And I would drive him to the games. And he was the worst, front seat.
Back seat, front seat.
Whatever. Yeah. Front. Turn here, son. Over here, son. And we would go through like a church and this. I'd have to get down this path that was so difficult. By the time I just couldn't wait to get out of the car. I'm like, we're here. Thank God. Right. I mean, no, wrong street. Turn right.
Your dad. That's one thing I remember from, I remember many things, of course, from this old cub because it's so inspiring. And I always tell patients to watch it. But
thank you.
When he says, well, what if I fall? Well, I've fallen before. And then he falls. He falls. He's like, I did something different or whatever he says. I don't know. Yeah. But Dad, you can't. Oh my God.
Right. And then we're in New York. He's like, don't.
I love him.
We're in New York. He's like, don't shoot the Mets. You've already shot this crap already. Right. Don't get, I'm by next to a Mets elevator. Get this. I hate this stadium. Let's get the hell out of here.
God, right? Yeah. When he said God lived in New York that year.
Yeah. Well,
so much comes back to me. I mean, it's that. That's the kind of stuff. Like, aren't we so lucky, Jeff, that we had our
phone? Oh man, lucky. Really, and even now, that's what keeps me going back there. It's just beautiful. It's like the older you get, the more you kind of go back to that child and take it in and ease back a little more in your life and say, hey, life's a struggle. Just gotta, take the bits of joys out of there and make it work.
Right. It's really, you just got to cherish. I mean, I have to remind myself every day, my niece has cancer.
Right here.
Such a sweetheart. You've got her shirt on.
Ashley. Oh.
She's our perspective every day and just her choice she's in Vegas this weekend.
Wow.
I mean, this has so much going on, her cancer's still there. 3 years she's had cancer.
The warrior. She's just a warrior.
She just keeps choosing happy, which is hard. It's hard. It's hard. It's hard to glimpse sadness. It's hard to glimpse fear, the what ifs, the why nots. And
we follow her all the time, Bonnie, and just, her, all the operations, all the key. I mean, she's just goes. It's just, and she does it. She
I
does
know.
it, and she loves her family, and she loves all you guys. And when I saw that moment when her sister came into town at your house, because she was staying with
Right.
you and going to the City of Hope to get her
Yeah, I'm
treatments
her
done,
advocate.
right? And I remember when her sister came and they met. It was like animals that met. They were yelping inside, and I
I know.
just cried like, oh my God, the love between, and they're twins, right?
Yeah,
And
you're making
so,
me so emotional, Josh.
oh my God, I was just like
No.
blown away. And I'm just, this is what family's all about right here. And this is what
Right.
twins are all about. And,
Right,
siblings.
when Ashley came home with me to be treated at City of Hope, and that was the longest she and her twin sister had ever been apart.
Mm,
'Cause, days turned into weeks, and weeks turned into months, and months turned into so long of her treatment and the surgeries and everything else. So, and it was COVID and everything else. So when we flew Danielle out, it was a big deal. I mean, Danielle was basically in a hazmat suit on that plane because she couldn't bring anything to Ashley.
yeah, right.
Brother Ross too. But that moment when they were on my front porch, when she saw her, you're right. It was a guttural,
Yeah.
verbal, yeah, from the heart, from the soul.
Right.
We're together. We're together. Cherish, cherish.
Yeah. Your whole family is just a beautiful family. I've met most of them. I don't know if I've met all the brothers yet.
Yeah. But Tom
but-
and Kevin. I don't know.
Yeah, but I just, Mary was with you when we met, and that was great at the game, and then went from there. But you're just a wonderful family, Bonnie.
Yeah.
And you could just tell by who you are. It's a product of where you come from, and it's your family.
Same to you. I mean, we're
Yeah.
you your family to me. I mean, that's
Yeah, my dad and mom did a good job with that. Kind of, you always kind of the life he lived. It was about, being kind, because he was kind to everybody. He signed every autograph. Today they don't do what those guys
No.
did, But he was also so passionate too. So if someone got in his face, he watch out,
yeah. Oh yeah, he was tough. Yeah.
Yeah, it
Oh,
was
yeah.
tough. Those guys.
Oh,
were
my
tough.
dad was. My dad was
Yeah.
like, "Don't flip the switch, guys. Don't flip the switch. I dare you. I dare you."
Right. Oh, that
Yeah.
switch. When that flips, boy, stay away.
Well,
But-
that's what I
but-
always said. Our family's fine. We're always fine when we're together until the phrase, "What's that supposed to mean?" It's like, "Uh-oh, who said it?"
Right. Totally. And it goes to my dad's mom, who was this Swedish woman that was so beautiful. She's in this story, that the limited series that we wrote, Blue Collar Famous, and she was so special because, and you remind me a lot of her. She was, full of life, and I just remember she died young, right? They got in a car accident
Yes, in a car accident.
1973, coming to spring training for the first time. Right. And because she hated to fly. And so she went to, this is crazy. She went to one of those readers, and they said, stay away from planes, because I see a plane, and they drive, and right. And you're just like, wow. Yeah, that was something that I've heard over, and he had a stepfather that his dad left when he was like 8 years old. And the stepfather that came in was kind of like my dad's real dad, John. He became, like, when he was 13,
Right.
they got married, and he was the kind of guy, my dad always said, John never put me down, and that's what it's about. Don't put the person down. Right. And because I know guys who put my dad, boom, don't, it's almost kind of like his fight. You put me down, watch out, and so I'll fail on my own. I'll do whatever, but just, and that relationship they had. And I just remember, when they passed, I was 10 or 11, and it was just, I remember at spring training, they went back, and we would go to spring training every year for a month. And
Glenn Becker
it was-
go with him, like, Joe Becker.
Glenn went with them. Glenn was a dear friend of my dad's, as you know, and Glenn went with them. And it was just, but she was such life that she took care of my dad, worked 2 jobs, and his sister, Adeline, who was an older sister. She was wonderful. So it was the 2 of them taking care of each other while the mom was single, doing 2 jobs. She worked as a waitress during the day in the post office at certain times. And so it was like,
think of how she believed in him. Like,
yeah,
she would
right.
call him and look at the box and scores, and everything she.
Right. Yeah. And that innocence of just like, even when, like, she just was always, I just always remember her of just, that was the light, she was the light for my dad. And so, I think that was a big deal. I mean, I know it was a big deal when they passed, but we didn't see, I really never even saw my dad cry,
I was
it's
going
just,
to ask you, like, what is your memory of that loss for your dad? Like, did you guys know? I mean, well, you're 10. Yeah,
oh yeah, we knew we
Horrible.
remember they had to leave. So, he had to leave town. So we knew, and it was hard. I remember, but I'm a kid still, right? So when he came back, he didn't show us anything like, but I can't, as you grow older, you're like, wow, what he had to be going through there and to play
I
a
know.
season and, and then from there on, after that, he went to the Sox. He didn't have to go to the Sox, but they wanted to trade him. And he was the first one to use the 10-5 rule. If you're on a team, more than 5 years, you're in the league for 10, you can veto the trade. He was the first one to do that before free agency. And he said, no, I'm going to go to White Sox, and which was a bad emotional move, right? And then the Cubs said, no, we want you. But he's like, no, you want to trade me, I'm going. And then that was like his last season. But I think that had a lot to do with what happened that spring, where things went that season and the next. And, so I can't imagine. But yeah. She was the light.
Oh,
So
you think about, you have a different respect level for his loss now. Like,
yeah,
I
totally.
think about that too with my family, the loss that my parents suffered when they were a young couple. My dad's brother died at 30. And I mean, you just think about that and you just go, wow, like,
right. You really do.
respect.
You really do. Yeah. Right. The way they carried it and keep going in life. And like you said, honor the people that you loved that aren't here anymore, and I believe,
That's how you got to get through it. Because yeah.
Yeah. And so I think that always, that way that my dad was raised by her, really, he raised us that way too, just being kind. And, we got into trouble, of course, right? Because your kids in the 60s and 70s, there's no phones. You're just on your bikes and you're gone. Right.
My dad, I mean, we didn't want to get my dad mad. No.
Right. Yeah. Oh yeah. Fear. He had
a heart of gold, but you didn't want to get him
right.
mad.
Don't get, that was it. No, don't get dad mad. Yeah.
I think about your grandma's energy and then your dad's energy when he had, the grandson,
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. Oh, Sam. Yeah, exactly. And my dad's sister, Adeline, was just a hoot. I mean, she was like my dad, and she's like, I was the ball player, not him, she played on a world-class softball team,
She did?
Oh, and she fought with guys on the street when he was young. Yeah, like seriously, it was crazy how cool she was, right? And protected him. She's like, oh, I saved her dad like 3 or 4 times, no doubt about it.
Freaking hilarious.
She was a lifeguard, right? And my dad would go on the high dive, and he would do these crazy flips because he was that kind of. He was good at everything, right? And so, just one of those kind of guys. He did the double backflip or what, and he hit his head on the high board. And he was drowning, and she went in there and saved him one time. Yeah, I saved him then on cliff dives. He almost died. I saved him there, And he'd be like, she likes to tell some stories, son. So she was great, though. Yeah, and she passed away right before COVID. She lived in her 80s, So yeah. So
Wow.
yeah.
Funny, and I hope that's what I am.
Oh, and hey, I'm an uncle. We don't have kids, and it's one of those things in life. Is that a choice or is that a?
No, it was just fate. That's what happened. And
yeah, right.
I had a couple heartbreaks throughout those.
I'm sorry. I just,
No,
but you're a great aunt.
Yeah. And I've been, that's the thing that my siblings give me. I love sharing my career with them. And then I have the great honor of them sharing their children with me. I mean, it's
right.
the best.
Yeah. Yeah. You're a wonderful aunt. And it's almost like you get to share yourself because of that though, too, by not having, you get to really share yourself because you had your own kids. It's a little different.
Right. I get to be the nurse, if the family, needs me, I can be there. And it's a luxury, they say, keep your life small, enjoy it all. I've not had a really big life. I've had success, but I like to keep it so that I can be selective of the material I do. And,
right.
The way I grew up, I mean, I talk about Beverly Hillbillies. I feel like growing up a blue collar kid in Chicago, the first time I went to a friend's house and she said, "Do you want to see my room?" And I said, "A room?" She said, "Yeah, my room." And I said, "You have a room for what?" And
Oh
she
my
was, "Where I
God.
sleep." And I said, "What do you mean?" She goes, "My bedroom." And I said, "Do you have a bedroom that you sleep in by yourself?" By yourself? Mary Beth Pisecki. That was her name.
What?
Yes. And we're walking up these stairs and we're walking past a couple other doors. I'm like, what is going on? Because we grew up in a brick bungalow. We always had plenty of space, but all the girls were I shared a room with 4 sisters, that's
Wow. Yeah.
um my dad made all of our beds. He
That's
made all the kitchen
amazing.
cabinets. He
That's
built it.
amazing.
Yeah. He put a dorm around the house and made it where we could all be together. But yeah, for me, my life now, it's like you don't need too much, you really don't.
No, you don't.
Although I
No,
have
you
more
don't.
than I could have ever, I feel very blessed, but it's nice to be available to family and,
Absolutely. And that blue collar girl and your family, like my dad was a city boy. Like we were still suburbs more. You were more in the city, right? So we Glenview sub, but we also lived in Park Ridge until 69.
oh yeah.
So yeah. And so, but going to that city kid versus a country kid is really different. You know what I mean? People don't,
Right.
and that's, I think, like my dad bringing that city kid to baseball.
Right.
It's just you're different. You're almost cultured in, like, not just baseball. It's not like baseball.
You're
It's like,
streetwise.
yes.
There's a newspaper in Chicago when I was younger that they used to have, like, people hand out and they would say streetwise. And I was like, that's what we are, we're
Right. Yeah.
I really believe that my upbringing in Chicago and being a Cubs fan, dealing with the heartbreak of your team not winning and
Right.
players and your family react to them, this is the year every year. It's and just being born into a team. My dad wanted 9 sons. He wanted a baseball team. But he said, he'd always say, well, then those dishes started piling up in the sink. So I had some, and my mother would say, I want to get a dishwasher. You got 4 of them upstairs. It's like, it was
That's
up in
great.
that time where
Right.
all the stereotypes, but the respect that
Yep.
my
There it is.
mother and
Right.
father had for each other, I knew that women were important. And,
Yeah. Hey, my mom, my mom's at home with us, right? So dad's out there, but the mom's there making sure, you're getting fed, you're getting
Right.
clothed, you're getting to where you ever have to go. You got to go to a baseball game. You got to go wherever. They're
Right.
doing it all,
Yeah, the hardest job in the world.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And so, wow. Well, going with your career, are you sticking now more with writing and directing? Is that kind of where you're going to stay, or,
Well, it's kind of you can be, celebrate the circumstances. I got older and you get offered less parts. And yeah, I've been lucky that I can, that I am a writer. I've been in the Writers Guild since the 90s, and we're on strike right now, but I love being a storyteller. I really love being a storyteller. I'm doing a movie in New Mexico at the end of June, if everything goes well with
you
that,
are?
right?
Okay, great.
But it's I'm waiting for, I would love somebody to write something wonderful for me. I love doing the series on Apple for, Amber Brown's been really successful and great, and I'm proud of it. Bring a lot of my own life to it. I get to write it, direct it, and all that stuff. But I really looking forward to getting some good roles, and I was with my family a lot. My I had a brother-in-law with a brain tumor. Our family was hit pretty hard with a lot of stuff, although we've also had a lot of wonderful things. But I went home and lived with my sister for a while with the 2 little kids and her husband, Brian, who Master Sergeant in the United States Army, and suffered a brain tumor and had to learn how to do everything all over again.
Right.
What a warrior he is too. And so I lived with them for a while, and, agents, I was like, no, I can't do, no, I can't go out, so I just wasn't home in Chicago for a long time. I have a condo there. Thank God I'm lucky enough to have that, because my family, we have 4 on the same floor.
That's outstanding.
what's so crazy, Jeff, is that we grew up in that house all crowded in together, and then we've recreated it.
Yeah, of course. Of course.
As
You know,
adults.
I say this because I believe it. I believe there is a Academy Award movie story out there that is waiting for you to be the lead actress in. You got so much, Bonnie, and you can play all sides, drama, comedy, and it's there. It's there. It's out there. I believe that's going to happen for you because you just have that way about you on the screen. And I just, by everything we're talking about, you got such a depth to you that those stories, I can't wait to see you in it. I really
hope so. I do. I hope a wonderful part comes my way.
Yeah.
I would be absolutely thrilled. I did a movie this past year with Chris Evans and The Rock, which we just did in Atlanta.
Oh, okay.
But it's a different experience. I was there and I played a role, but it's different when, I really want the meat, and I want, I want
right.
the depth.
Right. And you're so good at writing and directing. I mean, your tone and in the way you tell stories is spot on, so I just, it's a lot.
I am a huge fan of your writing. You and Christy, I don't know. We got to make that happen.
I love, we're open for it. Yeah, for sure. And we've come a long way with it too. Yeah. We've come a long way with it, and we need people like you on it to cause that would be wonderful, Bonnie. So yeah, well, thank you for that. It's writing is a thing where you just keep working and working and working and getting better and better and better. And because
the real
you're always learning.
Rewriting. Yeah.
Yeah. Right. And storytelling is like you said, storytelling. It's like we grew up in storytelling, right? It's
Dad was a broadcaster. He was part of the drama. He knew how to tell us what was happening. And he could feel it through his voice, a performance, bringing us into the moment. That's part of our genetics, Jeff. That's part of who we are. You and I,
is.
Hey, but we grew up with it. We're thrilled by it. It's part of our childhood. You and I were audiences.
100%.
Incredible people that were in our lives,
Yeah. And just the stories that go back and forth with your family. And my dad was always telling baseball stories, right? Even after his career, where they at? Tell me about this story or this story. It's like, so everything was stories.
And that's how we heal. That's how we inspire. That's how we help each other, is through sharing our stories and, explore and heighten them, like bring them to the forefront. And yeah, I mean, I love being a part of good stories. I've been so lucky, with to work with Jerry Maguire and the Green Final and everything I've done, Jumanji, just like being selective was worth it to me, to not be seduced by the wrong thing, fame or money. It was good work and something that I thought could be proud of.
Yep. And your talk show was great too. You won awards for outstanding talk show, right? 2 years.
Yeah. I think there was a lot of stuff that went on with that. I think it probably would have been on the air if I played the political game a little bit. And I didn't also want to do the sound bites type of stuff. I didn't want to, shock my guests or surprise them with information they didn't think I had, unless it was like a birthday. Like when I had Tim Conway on, I had Bob Newhart walk out with his birthday cake. You know what I mean? Like, I was like going to Warner Brothers. I go, guess who I got on the show next week? I got Dick Van Dyke and Mary Tyler Moore.
My God.
Sure. Well, no, but they were just like, can't you get Justin Bieber? I'm like, well, I'll try.
Oh my God. Right.
I took advantage of I had Glenn Campbell on, Debbie.
Oh yeah. Right. Like a rhinestone. I mean, those guys, like Dick Van Dyke show was so, I know you've talked about how that show was always on, right? Andy Griffith, Dick Van Dyke. We just love those shows. Yeah. Right. And then you got to work with Jonathan Winters, the Jonathan Winters show as a kid, because I had older guys. We had the Polano family were big friends of ours. We were really close, and they had 4 boys, and they're always watching Jonathan Winters. So I'm and just, I love Jonathan Winters because they did, and so, and then you got to work with him.
Do you know what Jonathan and became a family member to me? Was very close to him until his last days. And I remember I was going through my divorce, probably 20 years after I knew Jonathan, and Robin Williams was talking to Robin about it, and I was really sad, and I hadn't told many people yet that the marriage was over. And Robin says, "Oh, we should get Jonathan on the phone." So we get Jonathan, and Jonathan says to me, "Okay, well, just take a deep breath now. You got to understand something. You married a mere mortal. They don't understand us." And I was like, just that one line brought me so much comfort. We're clowns,
Oh,
yeah, we're these creative people that you're finding the new job every 2 months. It's just who we are, and it probably was hard for him. And but it's just, you married a mere mortal. They don't understand us.
that's classic.
Robin and I would always say, after that, we'd look at each other and say, mere mortal. Like if there was somebody that we were didn't care for.
Oh God.
Yeah, Jonathan and Robin were bookends for me, and the loss of both of them was devastating.
Absolutely.
My
And then
buddy.
Steve Martin, when you did the narration for Cheaper by the Dozen, that opening was like butter. That was a fun movie, and I can imagine being with all those kids.
Oh, I loved it. It felt like home
right.
to me. And I was able to improvise so much, throwing the toast and just adding stuff to scenes. Just that was my mom. I brought my mom to when I've played a mom so many times, and I've just been so lucky to always bring. My mom was so deep and so brilliant and funny and kind and loving and just streetwise. She, I just had something to draw from. And so Cheaper by the Dozen was a lot of fun. And talk about evolution of writing. Don Lake and I, my writing partner at the time, we wrote the first draft of that version of Cheaper by the Dozen. Met with the daughter, Lillian Gilbreth, who wrote the book, the original movie, based on the true story. And they selected. She was okay with me because my father had died in a similar fashion as her father did, died of a heart attack, leaving her mother with all these children. And so that was the movie. It was, I think the lead at the time was going to be Mel Gibson when I was writing. So I wrote this movie with the father's death in it. And I remember just sitting at the laptop, and I had all the 12 kids, the characters in front of me up on a wall. Don would come over, and we had all their names, and we had a, personality for each of them. And based on everything we met, Lillian was in her 90s when I met with her. And she said, "Promise me that you'll stay true to my family story." I said, "I promise you." So, if I'm the writer, this is the way it's going to be. So I write this movie and can't even get through the scenes where the father dies. I'm sobbing writing these scenes. Right. And then of course the studio says, "Oh, I don't know if we want the father to die." And then boom, Robin Williams was the dad at one point, I think. And they said, "Oh, we're going to make it a little lighter." And I said, "Oh, I don't know if I can change. I promised her I wouldn't. So maybe somebody else should do the rewrite." And then as years went by, the family, Lillian had passed away. The family's like, "Yeah, do whatever change it. However."
Okay. Yeah. Wow.
And then Steve Martin was the father. And then it became a little more wacky, but still the heart and soul was there.
Yeah, of course.
Some of my script, some of my stuff was still in there. And then, I said, "Yeah, of course I'll play the mom, and I'll hopefully bring some depth and intelligence to her as much as I can."
Yeah, you did. You did.
So fun.
And those kids, those two cute twin boys. Oh my God, they were dynamite.
Yeah, and they're great now. I mean, I stay in touch with kids, and
that's awesome.
Yeah, well, I'm so lucky to have movie kids because
right.
Heart. Yeah, they're in my heart, and I care about them, and all the kids I've been the best.
God. Bonnie, it was so great to talk to you. And
you too, Jeff. I love you. I love you and Christy.
Oh,
your
thank you. We love you. Oh, thank you. Feel the same way. Same way. So, well, we got to get together here soon. We're close, right?
Yeah. Let's do it.
Let's do it.
You guys are supposed to come over here like 8,000 times. And then, my house is more than this black scrim. The place is small. And I painted it all black. People can't see us, but I have a scrim behind me.
Right. Yeah. Oh, that's great. Well, yeah, we'll do something. We have to. And right, I'll get you some of that our new stuff. I could send you over the pitch deck thing.
Let's do it. I'm on a mission.
Let's do it. All right, I'm all for it, Bonnie. That sounds great. Thank you. Absolutely. Let's do it.
It's too rich and too full.
Yep. I love to have you coming on with your take on everything. Oh my God. It'd be beautiful.
Batter up.
Beautiful. Batter up, right? Put me in, coach.
Got that
Awesome.
right.
Yeah. All right, Bonnie.
Love
Talk
you,
soon. Love you. Bye.
That moment was brought to you by Tangent West, executive recruiters. Headquartered in Denver, with offices in Vail, Colorado, and New Orleans. Since 1995, Tangent West has conducted executive searches nationally and internationally. They place C-level executives, management positions, high-level executive assistants, marketing and accounting, and finance. Cheryl Grimaldi, president, has personally interviewed over 36,000 candidates and has filled over 2,500 searches. I've known Cheryl for decades. She's a dear family friend and someone you can trust. She's been at this for a long time. Tangent West, hunting human excellence and building the country's finest companies since 1995, because nothing matters more than hiring the right people. If you're hiring, go to www.tangentwest.com.
Crackerjack.
This call is being recorded.
Mom,
Yes, I'm trying to get you where I can hear you.
you can't hear me?
Am I on recording?
Yes, you're on the crackerjack.
I'm the crackerjack that didn't know how to answer the phone.
That's okay.
That's okay, I know, because I'm an old crackerjack. Fire away, son. Okay? You and me, we're here together.
Yes, we are. Absolutely.
Yes.
I wanted to talk about my grandmother, Dad's mom, Vivian.
Who came over from Sweden when she was a child.
You know, what I remember of her was always just being kind of this bright light person, you know, always just strong, kind of joyful, just pleasant to be around as a kid.
What you remember is exactly right on. She was the most loving, caring, gentle person. Maybe I could say that among really the top, really exceptional, just exceptional person.
Wow. When did you meet her? Did you meet her when you were in high school early on?
I met her, well, your father and I, when I was a sophomore, started to go out, and then I would say maybe a year or so later, invited me to dinner, and I met her, and it was so easy to be around them, the family, you know, Vivian, and then her then husband, John, who was your father's stepfather, and Adeline, his sister. They were amazing. Felt so comfortable all the time around them.
Did Vivian, she worked 2 jobs, right, before John came into her life?
She did. Your father's birth father, really, he left them. And so she got 2 jobs and supported them. And then your father had a wonderful grandfather, Vivian's father, and he helped too. So all together, they worked together and made it happen and stayed together.
Yeah.
And we're happy. And they were happy and peaceful.
Did Dad tell you, like, he would say that she kept him in line too, like when Louis, the father, left when Dad was like 7 or 8. And then it was just Vivian raising Dad and Adeline.
Yeah.
And she would be strict at times, though, too, with Dad, right?
Yes. And then she was a wonderful parent, you know. So she did all the wonderful things. And he didn't get out of line, your father, because he had a mother that worked. No, she really, with love, actually, kept them all just fine. He had a little more trouble when she married John, because that was somebody new coming in the family. And as time went on, they became so close that really John became his father. They had a wonderful, so he had a mother and a father growing up all through high school and forever in John and Vivian. Yeah. And
Adeline, where did Adeline play a role? Because Adeline was a couple years older but she just as much a personality as Dad, and the strength and passion, right, for baseball too.
Oh, she was very athletic and good, and then she helped by giving your father some money because she went to work when she was 18, and so she helped, and then she bought a car, and she'd let him use it. And then there was a time when she went out to look at her car, and there was a dent in the front. So she came running in to say, Ron, what did you do to my car? Because he had it the night before. And he said, nothing. What's wrong? Somehow to find years later, it was called the Triple X barrel. It was like one of those things out of Fonzie, a drive-in restaurant where, they bring the food to you on a tray in the car. And there was a pole in front of each parking spot. So that night he pulled in too close and he hit the pole. He hit the pole and put the dent. I don't think she really knew the truth until I could figure it out easily. I know where that dent came from. And I told her, that's what it's from. So anyway,
God.
They had, it was a good family, a very good family that I had a pleasure of being part of. It was my pleasure.
And you were closer all through the, your time in Chicago.
Absolutely.
Until their passing, and talk about that in 1973. We were in spring training, right? Right. It's one of those things that I think you become numb to. It's surreal. Mm-hmm.
We got the phone call like about 3 a.m, and I just can't tell you. It's just surreal to be hit with something like that. And then a wonderful thing that happened is, naturally it was spring training, so you had to get a permission. Back then, anything you did, you had a permission from the ball team. And so he got it. And then Glenn Beckert went in and said, can I go with him? And he was a salvation. He was strong. He organized so much. Eternally grateful that he was able to come. And another thing that was pure accidental, my parents happened to be in town on vacation there, and they were able to come over and watch you and Ronnie and your sister so that we could go to Seattle for the funeral.
Wow.
And it was a funeral, I just have to tell you, because it was so unusual. The church was packed, and then the procession to the cemetery, you couldn't see the end of the cars. And so that's a tribute to them and to Adeline and your father and all the friends. That's how much they were loved and respected.
Wow. And they were coming down to spring training by car because I remember always hearing that she went to a psychic, and the psychic told her that she couldn't don't fly.
She would die in a plane crash. That's what they told her.
Wow.
Yes. So anyway, they drove, but they didn't mind driving. They were fine. They were an incredible couple. Just perfectly matched. So they drove, and then outside of Palm Springs, they had the accident that took their lives, the two of them.
Yeah.
And so I guess if you wanted to say anything, if you can say anything that's positive about that, one could not have lived without the other. They were that
right. So, and John became a father to Dad in a way where I remember Dad saying that he never put him down. John was very positive.
Oh, he was wonderful. He supported him. He guided him the right way. And your father always went to him, talked to him about anything. So no, he was.
That's rare to get a stepfather or that comes in and does that.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. There aren't very many Brady bunches out there. And,
no. That's for sure.
Yeah. And then John had a son, Larry, and even Larry became part your father's brother. They got along wonderfully.
Yeah.
So it really worked out.
Yeah, sure did. And with Dad's dad, didn't he left and he came back when Dad made it to the bigs, right? Like his first year or so. What was that in LA?
Yeah. It's kind of one of those sad parts of now you come back when your son has made it.
Wow.
And he showed up. It might have been San Francisco. And he was there after the game. Yeah.
What did Dad do?
You know what? Your father was very kind, and just talked to him and visited with him. So.
Wow. And that was it, though, right? They never talked.
Didn't see him. Maybe when your father was much older, I think he went to visit him once. They moved to Tacoma, and so he visited with him. But I mean, John was always his father. His father.
Yep, that's what I remember. Yeah. I don't even remember Louis until later, way later, when I think I was in college. He was passing away or he was sick, and Dad had us talk to him on the phone, like in college.
Okay.
Yeah, and one real quick, and that's the only time I heard his voice.
Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right. So,
wow. Well, getting to spring training, how we went down there every year. How did you get ready for that? Like starting with when you first, Dad was in the bigs in '60. Like, how did spring training work out? And then obviously with us, we started going there every year. Tell me about that a little bit.
Well, I would drive the car there with Ronnie. And your father. But coming back, I would drive just with Ronnie, and I would have my very good friend was Martha Elson. Her husband was Don, a pitcher, and I would follow them. And they were like in a station wagon pulling this little teeny trailer, and I was in this brand new, souped up looking car. And so every time we'd pull into a gas station, they'd fill her gas tank, but then they would tell me, your tire's going bad. So I bought a tire. Next station, same kind of station, same brand, can't remember exactly. You need a tire. By the time I got to Chicago, I had 4 new tires. So they could look and say, okay, here's this woman with Illinois plates, not in Illinois, with a child in the back, and let's have her buy some new tires.
That's funny.
It was so funny. Martha and she had 3 children, and I just had Ronnie then. And we're not the kind of travelers that would get up early and get a good start. We'd sleep and probably 10 o'clock in the morning. And so it took us probably a record time to get back to Chicago because we just like to sleep and eat and do all that. But after a few years, it was like, this is crazy, driving back and forth. So
right. And then once we started going every year, did you prepare like a month before? Like, because we would go for a whole month.
Yeah, I had to pack all kinds of things for, kitchen, bath, clothing. Where we stayed, there was a wonderful man. Actually, it was Hallmark Homes. They're still around, the condos. And
right.
He let your father and Glenn, we got to use one every spring. They were at different locations. And then we just rented some furniture and then had enough of in the car that was packed in the car, to have a month down there. And then you and Ronnie were supposed to be, they gave you a program of study. And unfortunately, we didn't stick to that too much.
Well, you sent us to a tutor like twice a week, right?
Right. And I think, yes, you did. I don't know how much you got accomplished, but we survived every year, and you guys passed every year.
Yeah, no, that was the best times ever going to spring training for a month.
It
was just wonderful.
It was the best time as a family.
Yep.
We were all together, and all the other players and their families, and then we'd have friends that would even come and visit. It was truly a vacation with a family. It was the best time, the best of times.
Yeah. And I remember when we first started, we stayed at the Ramada Inn. The whole team stayed at that little Ramada Inn in Old Town Scottsdale, which was great.
Right.
Wh-
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
How about the time when that spring training when I broke my hand?
Yeah. I mean, here again, you and Ronnie got on the field at Wrigley Field. You walked around. You did everything. Went in and out of the Cubs house, which I don't know how. Yosh wasn't really happy with you guys. He was, the.
Oh, he loved you. Yeah. Every time he'd bring you a case of Coors beer.
Yes, we were
delivered. I remember. Yeah.
And then, anyway, so in spring training, they let you on the field and they're practicing and hitting, and you thought you could dive and catch this hit that came off of the bat of Ernie Banks. And then you started screaming. So your father went running, and he gets very nervous and excited about anything like physical illness or anything. So he picked you up, and you're lucky he didn't, by picking you up so hard that he didn't maybe break your arm. And then rushed you across, and right across the street was the hospital. So you guys just went over there and you got a cast and fixed it. So, but that was, I think, the last time you guys were on the field.
Yeah, I ruined it for us. Yeah.
Yes, you did. Yes.
God. But those were great times, and just something that, like, it's different, obviously, probably today, but
totally different. I mean, there's so much money nowadays. Those things were. That's why I drove the first couple of years, because we didn't have the money to fly and ship the car, and just had a low key life there. So it was different. Yeah, totally different. Yeah.
I almost think like the Cubs being in Arizona, it almost became like that's why Chicagoans went to Arizona and New Yorkers went to Florida. It had a lot to do with their baseball teams,
I don't know. It just seems, though, yes, a lot of Chicagoans are out here. That is for sure.
Yeah. Well, you're out there now, and I was out there for a while, and Ronnie's out there now, and Linda's out there. So, yeah.
Well,
it became like
years ago, you said, Mom, you have to go to Arizona to live because we're all going to end up there someday as family.
Yeah.
And other than you just being a little ways in California, we are. We are together.
No doubt.
So
and I was out there for a while. Yeah.
I know it. It was, I've never regretted leaving Chicago. I love it here. Love it.
Yeah. No doubt.
And I've been here 25 years. And I've been here 25 years.
Yes, you have. It's been that long now.
Right.
Wow. Yeah, we took that ride together from Chicago. I moved you out there.
Yes, and 2 dogs.
And 2 dogs.
And then and 2 dogs. And we had one dog, Mo, who you brought home one time when you went to your college, and his dog was tied up in the front, and you said, whose dog is it? And they said, don't know. So you asked, can I have it? And you told me as you were coming home driving that you were bringing a dog. And then I hung up on you. Because
you did, but it became the best dog ever, right?
She was the best dog. She was big. She was a Newfoundland and whatever. So, and we had a sneaker into the back in we called them motels back there. Okay.
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Because I don't think they would have liked that big of a dog in there, but she was wonderful.
Yeah.
And then we had little Axel Rose with us.
Yep, that's right.
Linda's dog, which was Linda's dog.
Yep. So, well, thank you for the crackerjack again, Mom. Enjoy the day. You got plans?
I'm going out for breakfast with a mystery person.
Okay. Well, good. Say hello to that mystery person and enjoy your breakfast.
Yes, I will.
All right, Mom. All right.
Okay.
I love you.
I love you too, sir. And
okay.
Christy. I love you
Christy
both.
says hello.
And even your 2 dogs, okay?
Oh, of course you do. Yes.
My grandchildren, okay?
All right, Mom.
All right.
Goodbye.
Bye-bye.
Talk to you later. Bye.
Oh, that was great.
Oh, it was such a heartfelt episode.
Sure was. Any questions please send us an email at jeff.ppcpodcast@gmail.com.
And as many of you know, doing a podcast takes a lot of time, effort, and resources. If you enjoy listening and would like to support us, get early access, exclusive content, and other perks, head over to our Patreon page by clicking the links below this episode or over on our website, peanutspopcornandcrackerjacks.com.
And don't forget to leave us a review on Apple Podcasts. Also, check out Bonnie Hunt's Return to Me on Tubi and Amber Brown on Apple Plus. Also, This Old Cub is on Tubi too. Thanks so much for your support and listening. And a special thanks to Scott Nelson and Jim McCauley. And remember, you can have all the talent in the world. It's not going to get you through. It's what you have in your heart.
Toodaloo.
SantoFilms.com, the place to buy This Old Cub DVDs, posters, and This Old Cub t-shirts. Get yourself one now at SantoFilms.com.